Growing up in Ketton, I was fortunate enough to spend my youth in the shadow of these two giant redwoods, or to call them by their proper name, Giant Sequoia. I've been fascinated with these trees ever since, and today's video is about an adventure of learning and discovery that I've gone on to find out a bit more about them. Giant redwoods are a surprisingly common landmark in the British countryside, and today we're going to learn about why these Californian giants have made their home in the UK, and how that can help support our native ecosystems. My journey will take me across the British Isles and over to sunny California in search of a better understanding of these magical trees which I've grown so fond of. There are three types of redwoods: the Giant Sequoia, the Coastal Redwood, and the Dawn Redwood. The former two are both native to the west coast of the United States, but Dawn Redwoods are native to China. Today we'll mainly focus on the two North American species, but as you'll see, Dawn Redwoods will make an appearance. I first became interested in Giant Sequoia, otherwise known by the name Sequoiadendron gigantea, when I started to notice that they were just about the tallest trees in most rural English towns and villages. Commonly seen in the grounds of stately homes, parks, and in other areas, these trees dwarf our native trees, both in height and girth in most cases. The beautiful village where I grew up, Ketton, is home to a number of groves of these trees. The giant sequoias in Ketton are believed to have largely been planted in the latter half of the 19th century by a local landowner by the name of Thomas Burroughs, who was friendly with the director of Kew Gardens at the time. It's thought that this may have been the source from which he obtained many of the saplings that have now grown into immense trees. To quote John Muir, "The big tree is nature's forest masterpiece, the greatest of living things." He planted many exotic trees in Ketton, such as Eurasian walnuts, western red cedars, and of course, Giant Sequoia. These trees are a key element of the charm and beauty of Ketton, which lies on the River Chater. I recently drew attention to two groves of giant redwoods which are currently under threat of felling by a local quarrying company and cement manufacturer known as Heidelberg Materials. I will link this video in the end screen. I'm trying to encourage anybody who is concerned to write to Rutland County Council to object to the felling of these historical trees, which are over 100 years old and were planted by Thomas Burroughs. We have until March of 2025 to try and engender some change to the plans and save these amazing trees. One of the groves is within a few metres of the edge of the planned quarrying area, and I feel it could be easily retained with a small change to the plans. It seems wrong to me that the largest producer of CO2 in the region would fell these trees, the best on Earth for capturing carbon. It was some time before I realised that these giant sequoias were actually non-native Californian trees. Amazingly, there are now more giant sequoias growing in the UK than in the whole of their native Californian range. Thanks to our wet climate, they've thrived here, which ensures a genetic safety net for the species. I've spent years wanting to visit these giants in their native range, and in 2024 I was lucky enough to do so. Giant redwoods are very ancient in terms of their evolution. The first recognisable sequoia left its imprint in the fossil record around 200 million years ago, during the Jurassic period, when dinosaurs still roamed the earth. These trees were once widespread, but now exist in only 75 groves along the western side of the Sierra Nevada mountain range in California. You can only see these trees in their native habitat in Sequoia National Park and Yosemite National Park. I was fortunate enough to visit Mariposa Grove in Yosemite, where I was totally awestruck by these unbelievably large trees. Giant sequoia have the largest volume of any tree species on Earth, and some of the specimens at Mariposa Grove are thousands of years old and are unimaginably huge. While these trees are specially adapted for wildfires, owing to their thick, flame-retardant bark, they are still vulnerable to the biggest blazes, which have now become more common, partially as a result of the suppression of smaller fires. This allows a build-up of flammable dead wood in the forest floor, which then can create a much more severe fire when the fires do come. So, I'm here in California, in Mariposa Grove. Giant sequoias, like these in their natural range, grow to absolutely obscene proportions. And a lot of these trees are upwards of 2,000 years old. They only grow in the Sierra Mountains of California naturally, but population in England alone is larger than that found here in their native range. You can see the scale difference between the ones at home and the ones out here, which boggle the mind, to be quite honest. Just absolutely enormous. So I'm here with Kimberly from the Ancient Forest Society, and I'm just going to ask her a couple of questions about what they do and how they're looking after this amazing grove of giant sequoia. So Kimberly, tell me a bit about the Ancient Forest Society.
Yeah, so Ancient Forest Society, their mission is to study and protect ancient forests and old trees. What we do and what we're doing now in the Mariposa Grove in Yosemite National Park is we are gathering samples, taking measurements, and making assessments on the trees themselves, which is really required. The physiology of the tree is required that we look at all of the trees. So we are a team of tree climbers who climb giant sequoias and make their way all the way up to the very top of the tree in order to make these assessments. Right now we're looking at some bark beetle activity that we've seen up in the canopy of the trees, which is a great concern in the community related to giant sequoias. We are part of something called Giant Lands Coalition and Giant Sequoia Lands Coalition, and that is inclusive of several federal agencies as well as our nonprofit who does the research and study on these beautiful trees.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And what would you say you want people to take away from visiting here? What do you think is the most important thing that a visitor coming to Mariposa Grove will go home with?
Oh, well, that's a great question. First and foremost, I think it's really important when people come to visit to really allow themselves to switch gears from what they're accustomed to in their daily lives and just kind of be in the trees. I see often visitors come and they feel like they're headed to a particular destination or to see a particular tree. And I always say, you're already here. So I think it's just a matter of allowing nature to really guide you in many respects and give you a chance to be present and be in the moment. I think that is a huge component to when we're in nature and bathing in the forest energy. Yeah. But also, I think it's important not to just take the energy and the experience and then move on from it. It's important for us to foster and acknowledge that this nature and grounds and places like these need us to support them too. So we can't go back to our lives racing around in cars or some type of transportation mode. You know, we need to remember that nature needs our help and that we need to foster and support the places like this and support organizations like ours, and really be mindful that this earth is what we need in order to survive, and trees are a major part of it. So
I couldn't agree more. Well said.
Thank you.
How can we support the Ancient Forest Society?
Well, you can check us out on our website, which is ancientforestsociety.org. And please, you know, any kind of social interactions, social media donations are always welcome. We are a very small nonprofit. We're doing very big work by hopping from grove to grove all throughout the Sierra Nevada mountains, and it's a big job, and we're grateful that we receive support from tree climbers from all over the world, and they all volunteer their time and energy and effort and money to travel here to help us. So our hope is to be able to raise funds to support them in the future and their interest and willingness to support nature and the needs that we all have to keep these places beautiful and here for many generations in the future.
Brilliant, absolutely. Well, we'll put a link to where people can donate down in the description of the video.
Yay! Awesome. Okay. So nice to meet you.
You too, Kimberly. All right, have a great day.
Thank you.
As you can see, these trees face threats within their own range, and the abundance of these trees in the UK provides a genetic reserve elsewhere on the planet. They fit extremely well into the UK's ecosystems, supporting and enhancing biodiversity. Their vast upper canopies provide space for birds, mammals, insects, and even other plants and mosses. Additionally, in a world of high CO2 emissions and only primitive carbon capture technology, these trees can help us to sequester carbon in their huge, fast-growing trunks. To this end, I again encourage anybody who wants to support my campaign to contact Rutland County Council Planning Authority and object to the felling of the grove of giant redwoods in Paradise Field. They're located at the What Three Words location, Pill, Gourmet, Grumbling. Together, we can save these trees, but only if we all raise our voices in objection. I also encourage you to consider donating to the Ancient Forest Society and support their work in preserving and researching these giants. On to the other species of redwood seen in California. The Coast Redwood is also a record holder, being the fastest growing conifers on the planet and the tallest trees in the world. Similar to giant sequoias, their native range is California, but also they spread up into Oregon. They faced a serious threat in the 1800s from logging, and 95% of the old-growth forest was lost during this time, before the trees became increasingly protected, in no small part due to the Save the Redwoods League, another factor which has inspired me to try and save the trees in Ketton. Coast redwoods are fascinating trees. Unlike other conifers, they can be coppiced, so when the main trunk is felled, the tree will regrow from the stump. In this way, much of the lost old-growth forest of America is regenerating. They rely on the thick fog which rolls off the sea and condenses on their needles, dripping down to the forest floor below, providing the roots with water. These trees are not as commonly seen in the UK, although I recently saw some good sized specimens at Belton House and, as you'll see, in Wales. We travelled north to the Redwoods State Park in California to see these giants in their natural habitat and explore the old groves of trees, thousands of years old. We also saw these trees further south in the town of Boulder Creek, where some logging still takes place, but on a more sustainable scale. The understory of the Coast Redwood forest is a lush carpet of ferns and mosses, which inspired George Lucas to choose it as the location for the planet Endor in the famed Star Wars films. It still enchants visitors today. Due to poor management of these forests and misguided efforts to suppress wildfires, large areas such as the Big Basin Redwoods State Park have been lost due to huge fires. If some natural fires were allowed to clear out the deadwood of the understory on a regular basis, these huge, devastating wildfires would be less common. The thick flame-retardant bark of these trees protects them from the fire, and it also helps their seeds to germinate.
Now, this is not your ordinary redwood forest. We're now diving into a virgin stand of all old-growth redwood. Now, the forest floor is nothing but competition. All these little saplings are all struggling to catch that sunshine. Only about 2% of the day's total sunshine reaches the forest floor for a mature redwood. That massive canopy is going to block out about 98% of all those sun rays. Now, statistically, that means only about 2% of each mother tree's babies are all going to make it to live on and become a real tree. About 98% of all of the saplings all die off throughout the mother tree's life. That's good odds though. You take 2% of survivors from that tree on top of that one and that one and that one. The forest is constantly regenerating itself from those roots. And how you eventually get those big, large, circular cathedral groves is just reproduction from the same ancient root system for many, many generations over thousands of years. They'll start out small, a group of redwoods, one major mother tree in the middle, with all of the babies around her. Now they're all dying off being sunned into the sunshine, but the ones that do move on to the next stage are there usually with the day the mother tree has gotten old and gray, she finally falls down to the forest floor for a final rest. While the tree hits the dirt, her canopy's gone up top and reintroduces the sunshine back down to her babies at the forest floor.
While exploring the grove of redwoods near Roaring Camp Railroad, we came across a rare and interesting specimen, an albino redwood. They are unable to photosynthesize and sustain themselves entirely from nutrients donated through the roots of other redwoods, usually the parent tree above. There are believed to only be a few hundred examples of albino redwoods growing wild in the world today, making this a rare and exciting discovery. What a magical looking plant. Albino redwoods have been important to Native Americans for generations and have been recorded in their legends. For example, the Pomo people used to use the white albino redwood in cleansing ceremonies. This example was of the basal type, growing from a burl at the base of a larger tree. So having seen the coast redwoods growing wild, let's go and have a little look at them growing amongst people at Boulder Creek, where they've lived together for hundreds of years. So I'm here in Boulder Creek, California, and we're in the heart of coastal redwood country here. This is the heart of their range, and the people of this beautiful town are lucky enough to get to live amongst these trees every day. This area along Fall Creek was clear cut and quarried over 100 years ago, and it's been left to regrow. And you can see here that we've got a beautiful biodiverse ecosystem representing the forest that was once here, and even some very large coastal redwoods that have grown. Travelling to California with charity and exploring among these amazing ancient trees was a dream come true. Back home, me and Charity travelled to Wales, to the Royal Forestry Society's Redwood Grove. Known as the Naylor Pinetum and the Charles Ackers Grove, this is a beautiful area to explore. The old grove was first planted in 1857 by John Naylor, and subsequent groves have been planted since that time. So I've come to Wales to the Charles Ackers Redwood Grove, which is managed by the Royal Forestry Society, to have a little look at how coastal redwoods grow in the UK. And as you can see, they grow pretty well. They're absolutely massive. Ones here, I believe, are the older grove, which is from the sort of 1850s. So they're getting on to being fairly good age, and there is a grove of younger coastal redwoods here as well that were planted in the 1950s. This huge area contains hundreds of coast redwoods growing together, giving a sense of what their native forests feel like. The wood is managed, but the old grove remains unthinned and healthy, with the oldest coast redwoods in the UK thriving here. I encourage you to support the work of the Royal Forestry Society in protecting and maintaining this special place. The reason that this grove is in the hands of the Royal Forestry Society is thanks to Mr. Ackers, who kindly donated the grove. Here is an extract from Charles Ackers' letter to the Quarterly Journal of Forestry, where he expressed, "The reason for offering this gift to the Society is that such a unique grove should be in the hands of a continuous society or organisation, in the same way as historical buildings and famous viewpoints have been made over to the National Trust. I say unique because I think that there is no other planted grove of redwoods as old or as fine as this one at Leighton, anywhere in the world." The redwoods here manage well despite being in an environment quite different from California. Here they lack the ocean fog and instead get far more rainfall. They have to deal with hard frosts, which is mainly a threat to new saplings. And they do suffer with browning and loss of foliage when it is very dry in the summer months. They have managed to recover from these challenges every year, highlighting further their amazing adaptability. Considerable works go to maintaining the forest and its wide variety of specimens. This is funded by the Society, and as per Mr. Ackers' wishes, the old grove remains unthinned, but very carefully monitored. I recently got the opportunity to plant a coast redwood in Ketton, alongside a representative from the Royal Forestry Society. This tree will hopefully grow tall and old over the course of the centuries, and will hopefully inspire others to care for and protect these trees for the future. I'm also in the process of raising money to plant a new grove of giant sequoias in Ketton, commemorating Thomas Burroughs, which will be the subject of a future video if I'm able to secure the funding and access to a suitable plot of land. While we were in Wales, we also stumbled across a grove of dawn redwoods. These redwoods, unlike the other two species, are deciduous and were losing their needles when we saw them. They have a delicate and more mysterious appearance, but remain distinctly redwood. So here at Leighton, not only have you got coastal redwoods growing in abundance, I've noted there's some groves of dawn redwoods here as well, and dawn redwoods are native to Asia. So unfortunately the budget for this video doesn't allow us to go and see them in their native habitat, but get a look at them here in their autumn colours, because during the winter time they lose their needles, unlike the other two species of redwood. I hope this short film has taught you something about these amazing trees, and keep your eyes out when exploring in the UK, as I can guarantee you will see one sooner or later. If you want to plant redwoods, do consider the immense proportions of these trees when selecting a site for planting. Finally, I again implore you to support me in saving the Ketton redwoods. These trees are part of the legacy of Thomas Burroughs, and the medieval pastureland holds irreplaceable historic value. Coming up Empingham Road, we can see the two groves of redwoods, currently planned to be chopped down by Heidelberg Materials. The first grove is a large group of trees off to the left of the road. Moving past this, the low winter sun showcases the amazing ridge and furrow pastureland, the earth workings of medieval farming. Finally, up to the second grove in the left-hand copse. This falls deeper inside the planned extraction area. Here we can look back from Paradise Field, across the existing quarry, towards the works. Looking out, we can see the surrounding ploughed fields, which are also planned to be quarried, highlighting the stark difference between the lush, biodiverse and historically significant area of Paradise Field and the other areas planned for quarrying. I don't know if we can save the grove which stands deeper inside Paradise Field, but given the proximity of the other grove, which is near to the edge of the planned quarry, near to Empingham Road, I really hope that Heidelberg Materials will change their plans to consider retaining this significant stand of trees. In an ideal world, a multinational corporation would never be able to touch Paradise Field at all, and the whole area would be preserved. However, I don't think that the council or Heidelberg are likely to give up the millions of pounds in revenue underneath those medieval ridges. So I think it's best to try and seek a compromise, to try and save some of the pasture and one of the redwood groves. Perhaps Heidelberg Materials will also consider including a redwood plantation in their revised plans, to remediate the loss of the smaller grove. I am planning a video in collaboration with a local historian to delve deeper into the significance of Paradise Field, so stay tuned for that. As of recording this audio, the 14th of January 2025, I can count 10 separate individuals who have objected to the plans specifically referencing the Redwood Grove. I'm grateful to those who've objected, but we need more help. If you can, and if you agree with me, please email Rutland County Council today to object to the felling of the Ketton Redwoods on Empingham Road. You can help by emailing planning@rutland.gov.uk and contacting Heidelberg Materials UK, who are the company who want to chop them down. I want to assure Heidelberg Materials that if they do go ahead with the felling of these trees, I will be there with my camera to document it. That's a video that I hope I never have to make. As always, if you've made it this far, I'm very grateful for your interest and support. Thank you.